How to Heelflip. In this video, I'm going to show you how to land a heel flip, and some common mistakes that might be holding you back from landing them. What is a heel flip? The heel flip is where you flip your skateboard under you by kicking it in an outward motion. The direction that the board rotates for a heel flip is opposite of the kick flip. The heel flip may look similar to the kick flip if you're new to skateboarding, but if you pay attention to the foot movement, you will realize that the motion and weight distribution for these two tricks is very different. The heel flip is one of the first flip tricks that most people learn on a skateboard. Some skaters learn kick flips before heel flips, but they are difficult to learn for different reasons. I think the main reason people learn kick flips before heel flips is that it's easier to watch the board while it's spinning, because your feet are more behind you when you're learning a kick flip than they are when you're learning a heel flip. Kick flips are definitely talked about more than heel flips in the skate community for whatever reason, but plenty of people have landed heel flips first. So if you can't kick flip, then keep watching, because there's a good chance that heel flips will be easier for you. By the way, I made this video to help people perfect their heel flips as well as help people land their first one. Towards the end of the video, I'll break down some steps you can take to land your first heel flip. There are a few things you should keep in mind before trying this trick. I think it's important to remind yourself of these things before you try any new trick. I know I say this in most of my how-to videos, but if you're new to skateboarding, then you should spend as much time as you can rolling around on your board. Being comfortable on your board is going to help you land tricks more than anything else. Timing. Most skateboard tricks are all about timing. Your feet have to work together, but they're doing separate motions. These movements are difficult or even awkward when you're trying a new trick. If you have learned a few other tricks already, then you know that after you do them a few times, your muscle memory kicks in, and you won't have to think about doing the trick nearly as much as you did when you were learning it. This is why having really good timing while learning tricks is important. Jump. The fact is, if you don't jump high enough to allow the board to fully rotate, then you have no chance of landing back on it. Really quick before I show you this trick, for these how-to videos I actually spend a month or more sometimes perfecting, filming, and fully understanding these tricks so that I can really break them down and help you guys land them. So if you're enjoying the video or if it's helping you and you would like to support my channel, all you have to do is like the video or even subscribe and hit the bell icon so you can be notified when I post a new video. Foot position. The foot position for heel flips varies, but here are some guidelines for setting up for this trick. The foot position is actually very similar to the ollie. The main difference is you want to move your front foot slightly outward. I personally find that tilting my foot a small amount gives me a better flick. Your back foot should be near the center of the tail of the board so that you can maximize your pop. If you find this position awkward or have trouble balancing, then you can move your back foot over some on the tail to counterbalance your front foot. You might think that you need to have your front foot hanging off the board more since it's a heel flip, but you're about to see that the heel is not involved nearly as much as you think. The heel flip can be broken down into three parts: pop and pre-flick, flick, and hang time and landing. The pop and pre-flick. You are going to pop your board just like you're doing an ollie, but instead of sliding your foot up the board to even it out, you will bend your ankle inward and lift your foot up to allow your board to pop. This will set you up for a really good flick off the nose of the board. Before you try to flick the board, you want to make sure that you are in the air. It's common for people to try to pop and flick at the same time when learning heel flips. You have to let the board pop before you flick. This is one of the main issues that hold people back. The flick. The interesting thing about heel flips is that people think that since the word heel is in the name of the trick, that you have to use your heel to flick the board. Actually, in many cases, your heel can get in the way when learning this trick. I think the main reason people struggle is that they have the wrong idea about how to kick the board to make it flip. You don't really want to slide your foot up the grip tape like you might for a kick flip. Instead, you'll pop a normal ollie while lifting your front foot up and then kick outward to flip the board once it's off the ground. When you flick the board, you want to flick outward off the nose at an angle. Although it is possible to flick the board with your heel, most people with good heel flips aim to flick the board with the pinky toe area of their foot and follow through with their heel. After you flick, you will need to extend your leg enough to keep it out of the way so it doesn't stop the board from flipping. The flick for heel flips can be tricky because you have to flick it in a way that your board flips and evens out in the air. This is the key to perfecting this trick. Spend some time really getting a good flip before trying to land back on the board. You want to keep a good center of balance when you flick as well. If the board is flipping and staying under you, and you are keeping a good center of balance, then landing on it is going to be way easier. Also, make sure you're jumping every time you try. If you don't stay in the air the entire time the board is flipping, then landing on it is going to be impossible. Hang time and landing. I think a lot of tutorials skip over this part of the trick. After you flick the board, your feet are going to be in a weird position. At this point, most people have the instinct to put their feet on the ground. Don't let that discourage you. It's actually a good thing at first. You want to make sure that you know how to flip the board before trying to land back on it. But once you have the board flipping correctly, you have to get your feet back above the board so that you can land back on it. You'll really have to focus after you follow through with the flick and the board is upside down on getting your front foot moving back above the board. Your back foot should stay over the board the whole time. You just have to make sure to lift it high enough to put it back on the board. If you have kept a good center of balance and jumped high enough, then you will be able to land. Most people like to focus on landing on the bolts of the board. This is a really good habit, since I'm pretty sure it's impossible to break your board if you land with both feet covering the bolts. Also, remember to bend your knees to absorb the impact. Let's rewind for a second. You should understand that landing your first heel flip is much different than trying to perfect the heel flip. I really want this video to help people with both. I've showed you already how to do a proper heel flip, but here are some steps you can take to land your first one. If you're having trouble landing, or even getting the board to flip, or it even flies away from you, then what you should do is spend some time doing some really good ollies. For heel flips, having a good pop is really important, so it might help you to do some solid ollies before trying to flick the heel flip. The flick of this trick happens after the pop. It's common to try and flick the board at the same time you are popping when you're first trying. I would say that this is the main issue that people have with heel flips. When you flick the board, try to find your sweet spot. As I said earlier, you want to flick the board with the pinky toe area of your foot. You can flick the board with the heel of your foot, but it makes it much harder to keep your balance. Once you're able to flick the board well, try to jump and land behind the board. If you can get the board to flick and jump so that you're landing behind it, then the only reason you're not landing the heel flip is fear. Something you can try is to flip the board with your hand in the same way that the heel flip flips and jump on the board. This could give you the confidence that you need so that you can land your first heel flip. From talking to a lot of skaters, it seems like a lot of people learn heel flips and then move on to other tricks, almost forgetting heel flips. Every once in a while I come across a skater that loves heel flips and does them all the time. If you keep consistently doing heel flips after you land one, then you're going to have great heel flips.